Welcome to Green Building Matters, the podcast that matters for green building professionals. Learn insight in green buildings as we interview today's experts in LEED and WELL. We'll learn from their career paths, war stories, and all things green, because green building matters. And now our host, and yes, he has every LEED and WELL credential. Here's Charlie Cicchetti.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. I have a quick announcement. At GBES, we're about to roll out something very, very cool. We're proud of, been working on a long time, and that's a new membership community. You're going to see that January 1st. Keep an eye out because we are going to really give you access to some incredible features, including access to some of the guests I have here on my podcast, friends of mine that you could ask project questions to. You can ask those thought leadership questions. But also, if you're preparing for an exam, we've got even more insurances that you'll pass that next exam. We've got even more cliff notes to give to you if you're part of our membership community, and so much more. So stay tuned. Be on the lookout for some upcoming announcements. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Cicchetti, and today I'm joined by Tommy Linstroth, and he's the CEO at Green Badger. He's a LEED fellow. We've known each other for a little while, and he's down in the great state of Georgia with me. He's down in Savannah, Georgia. Tommy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, you got an interesting journey. You were fortunate to work with one of the early adopters here in the Southeast in sustainability. You were their director of sustainability. We'll get into that. Worked on many LEED projects, and you've got a great company you've been behind for a number of years to kind of, make it a little easier on that LEED documentation that's sometimes pulling teeth. So we're going to talk about all that in a minute, but take us back. Tommy, where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
Yeah, sure. So I am in Savannah, Georgia now. I am not from Georgia. I'm originally from the great state of Wisconsin and grew up there, went to college there, had my first job there. And then as I was beginning really diving into my sustainability journey, realized I needed to go back to school and become a bit more educated on it. And so when I made that decision, I was in the middle of January. I had ankle surgery, so I was on one leg and I was hopping around my car in the middle of snow, trying to scrape ice off my windshield. And I was like, you know what? I am going somewhere warm and on a coast.
Nice.
So I am out of here. And so then I decided to move. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina to go get my master's degree and just decided to stay where it was warm and close to a beach.
Yeah. And there at College of Charleston, Master of Science, Environmental Studies, is that when you really got the aha moment to make a career in sustainability, or had you already been kind of thinking like that?
Well, I started thinking like that in college. It was right around my junior year. And every time I came back home, my university was about 4 hours away. So every time I drove back home, we lived in the outskirts of Racine, Wisconsin. So we lived right in the suburbs. But we grew up, there was a ton of cornfields and woods that I grew up playing in. And every time I came back, there were less and less of them. And it was just more urban sprawl housing, and all of this nature that I grew up in was disappearing. So right around my junior year of college, I was like, man, I need to start focusing on this. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't dive in head first right away. I got a minor, which is something I could pick up in that last year and a half I had of school, and then really decided after working that I needed to go back and focus on it. So it started earlier, and it just took me a little while to get around to figuring out what the best way to start applying that was.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a lot warmer down here in the South. And then you made a home in Savannah. For those that have been to Savannah, definitely a historic city. And you got into sustainability by way of Melaver. Could you tell us a little bit about that time?
Sure. So it's interesting. So as I was going through grad school, I was really focused on greenhouse gas emissions and dealing with it from a municipal level and a policy level. Focused my thesis on that. I wrote a book on that. I was pretty sure I was going to be going into the nonprofit or policy side of things, and then ended up seeing an opportunity with Melaver Inc., which is a regional development company based in Savannah, but they did stuff throughout the Southeast. And they were looking for a director of sustainability. They were a true believer in ethical construction and sustainability, and really a pioneer at the time. And, this was not hey, we want to do things greener. It was, we want everything we're going to do to be green. And it was really just a great opportunity that I find myself fortunate to be in. And it really diverted me out of that public policy side into the actual development side of things, which was great from twofold. A, it helped me get where I was today, but B, it just really helped me show the impact you can make. There's one thing where you can preach at everybody all you want to build green or to do the right thing, whatever your passionate cause is. But when you actually are doing it yourself as an organization with your own money, your own dollars at stake, people tend to take you maybe a little bit more credibly. And so it really helped me in terms of how we begin to frame some of these conversations we have around sustainability.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for those trying to put together a timeline here, the first LEED projects weren't certified until the year 2000. Tommy joined Melaver in 2004. So that was an early adopter. And I love it, the way you said everything, all in with a lot of the green and sustainability there at that company. So, did anyone have any influence in you throughout your career? Any mentors along the way, Tommy?
There were a number along the way, but the one that just rises to the top was the CEO of Melaver Inc., Martin Melaver. He's somebody I've had the pleasure of knowing, obviously, now 14 years. We still get together. We still collaborate occasionally. But again, as a leader who was not only just extremely intelligent, but focused morally, ethically, and as a visionary. There's a lot of great people who can do good things, but it's really empowering to work with somebody who has the type of vision to see what we need to be doing, how we need to be doing it. And he, really took the time to help me understand that, as well as help me progress through my own sustainability journey. So always got to give a shout out to Martin, as the first guy that comes up anytime anybody asks me about mentors.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And later in the podcast, I'll ask you about books, but on my shelf right here behind me at my home office where I'm recording this is Living Above the Store, Martin's book he came out with in 2009. So everybody needs to check that out. So Tommy, then lots of projects for that developer, and then you broke out and started Trident Sustainability Group. I was reading up on your profile. First LEED McDonald's, one of the largest green affordable housing developments. So give us a little bit of that highlight reel. What kept you busy there as you were cutting your teeth on all these different LEED programs?
Sure. And as you mentioned, it was, Melaver was an early adopter of LEED, and we committed in 2004 that everything we were going to do would be LEED certified. And at the time, there was just LEED for new construction. So we were in the pilot for LEED Core and Shell. We did the first LEED Core and Shell shopping center. As part of that, we did a separate LEED McDonald's. And then we moved into affordable housing back before the wave of green affordable housing came out, and really helped, I think, redefine how they recognize green affordable housing in the state of Georgia, which was great because we were the first one in the state to get certified. And all those were pretty awesome. So again, I feel really fortunate that I was able to work for Melaver at that time. After I left there, I did start Trident, which was a consulting group, continued to slide through project after project throughout the Southeast and up and down the East Coast, ranging everything from, boutique hotels to warehouses to other affordable housing projects. So certainly got cut my teeth on every type of LEED that there was out there, which led me to, where I am today, which is saying, man, enough is enough. Everyone loves LEED, and everyone to a T. Maybe your listeners will disagree, but I can't find a single person I've ever met who says, man, I love doing LEED documentation, right? We love green buildings. We need green buildings. We need third-party verifiable rating systems because, as I'm sure you've seen, you work with a project, as soon as they take that LEED requirement off, a whole bunch of green stuff gets DE'd out of it. And it's like, man, this is barely better than it was. But again, the paperwork and the verification and the hundreds of hours that teams have to spend, or the tens of thousands of dollars, to me, those are things that can be spent making your buildings greener, getting them on time and on budget, and really, taking down one of the biggest barriers of why we don't see people get LEED certified is just the administrative hassle. And so to do that, I launched Green Badger, which really acts like a TurboTax for LEED construction to really try and eliminate the biggest headache and the biggest barrier towards further adoption of green construction and third-party verified buildings.
Yeah, Tommy, some of the best inventions and the best softwares are those that make our life a little easier first. So it sounds like that's kind of what happened here with Green Badger. And I'm sure with LEED version 3 to LEED version 4 and changes, documentations maybe even become more cumbersome. So that's what's keeping you pretty busy today, right, as your work at Green Badger?
Definitely. I mean, it's we've got hundreds of projects going on now across the country. We've got 8 of the top 10 largest green contractors in the country using Green Badger on projects And so continuing to enhance, to develop it, to put out new functionality, as well as beginning to look at how can we address some of these other rating systems that are out there, like WELL and like Living Building Challenge. So we've got, running a startup tech company, even though this is roughly our third or fourth year. I mean, we're still in full on startup mode. So it's, it can be product development, it can be customer support, trading, marketing. No day is the same. It's exciting. But the impact we have, and honestly, I mean, the feedback from our customers who just love us and are saying how great this is and how easy this is making it for them, that's what keeps us going every day. Outside of the bigger, broader impact that we're hopefully having on the green construction industry.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and you had that great foundation, having worked in the trenches on all of those LEED projects, all those green building projects. So it was very exciting. Well, what are some other maybe accomplishments that really stand out? I mean, I mentioned you're a LEED fellow. You've worked on some of the first of certain types of LEED projects. You're an entrepreneur, and you've got Green Badger and growing. But anything else stand out? It's okay to look back on that highlight reel.
Yeah, I mean, Green Badger is sort of the thing that I'm most proud of everything I've done. But I mean, I've been fortunate to be involved with a lot of great people and doing a lot of great stuff. Back in the day, we started the first official USGBC chapter in Georgia down in Savannah. We later grew that into the first Georgia statewide chapter, and I was fortunate to be on the founding crew of that and the initial chair. We grew that so we could eventually hire staff. So we were one of the Georgia chapters that actually had staff before they went back through this merger with USGBC. So the ability to influence all the people that organization has is certainly pretty cool to be a part of. I built my own LEED Platinum house, which is also pretty sweet to get in to demonstrate your convictions and put your money where your mouth is. And I'm also really proud of the latest nonprofit I started a couple of years back, which is called Sustainativity. And basically it's a mechanism for implementing sustainability for other nonprofits. Now, you can write checks to nonprofits all the time, and you lose about 20 to 30% of that goes to overhead or administrative efforts. We're 100% volunteer driven, and every dollar we raise goes into a specific sustainability project for another nonprofit. So we've done lighting replacements, we've done insulation, we've done all sorts of stuff that help other nonprofits implement and incorporate sustainability into their own activities, as well as pay lasting dividends because they are now able to stop sending money to utility and apply that back to their mission. Right. So we get to be happy because we're seeing, again, tangible implemented sustainability projects that we know are going to be there for years to come. Our recipients love it and they benefit from it because they're going to be seeing the dividends every utility bill from now until they move out of that facility. So really proud of the work Sustainativity's done and the efforts you've had over the past couple of years to help improve the nonprofit community in Savannah.
Man, you're busy, and I love that nonprofit side too. So what else today, though? I mean, Green Badger, you mentioned Living Building, you're having to maybe adjust some of your software, but any other projects you can talk about that are coming up?
There's some things we can't talk about. We're looking at some pretty cool strategic partnerships, which could be extremely beneficial for us, for them, and for, again, green building in general, all towards that mission I have of just making sustainability simplified, right? Like, I'm a firm believer that everybody wants to do sustainability. Everyone's happy to incorporate it, and just tell them what to do and they'll do it. We've perhaps made some of this stuff too complicated and too cumbersome, which is great if you're a consultant and people are paying you to figure it out. But to see that widespread democratization of green building, where it's in every single building we go to, not just, the 5% that are certified or, going towards net zero or anything like that. So we're cranking away to help try and make that a reality.
Yeah, no, I like that. Let's keep simplifying it and not keep it complicated. Well, where do you think sustainability is shifting next in this green building movement? If you had that crystal ball, what should we be reading up on?
Well, I'm sure you're seeing the same stuff I am. I mean, there's definitely a push in the healthy materials, right? We've got, besides even just well and fit well, the push to have the transparency on the material side of things. The efforts there, we'll see what the end results of it are. I think we've got a broader push towards net zero specifically. I mean, you're starting to see where that's getting mandated. You've got to have renewable energies on all your new housing in California. I think obviously that could set a precedent that starts to ripple across the country. And again, honestly, if we want to actually see see the type of change we're all hoping for, that's kind of the direction we need to go, right? Having one off-grid building does not put us on the path we need to. We need to have hundreds of thousands of off-grid green buildings to really start combating climate change and greenhouse gas emissions and all of those other things that are associated with building energy consumption.
No, you're right on all those fronts. Let's talk about, since you're an expert at the documentation side and simplifying that process to get those extra lead points that maybe some projects just think are too labor intensive, or maybe they don't know. They don't know the right way to go about it. But EPDs, HPDs give us a little picture there. Are you working with manufacturers? Are you working with the contractors and architects? And just trying to, for those listening, want to paint the picture of how your service works to streamline things.
Sure. So we act like a TurboTax, specific on the construction. Not that the design side of green building is easy at all, but if you have a set of CDs, right, you can do all your design documentation. It's not changing unless you have some dramatic scope change or VE. If you have a set of 75% or 100% CDs, you can do all your documentation and call it a day. The construction side of things, it's literally a shovel in the ground day one through turning over the keys. That could be 6 months later. That could be 5 years later. We're working on at least 6 airport projects from coast to coast, and those projects are going into 2022. It's like, man, you've got to manage, track, document, and verify both your products as well as your practices for years, and trying to do that by hand and find those products and track all that. And you've got turnover and people coming and going. It's like the tools that people have been using to do that. It's just crazy. And again, when I was a consultant, I used those same tools. And so Green Badger really works to streamline and automate that process in a cloud-based system that everyone can access, that eliminates that turnover gap, that gives you central repositories of information. So as part of that, we work to help teams find products, to source that data. Again, I go back to people don't want to search 500 hours to find out a paint they can use. If you just tell them, look, use this paint, it meets the VOC requirements and it's got an EPD, boom, you're done. Like, why are we making this process so cumbersome? If we've got something that works and it's innocuous, like, fine, just use it on every project. Never think about this again. You're done. So we're trying to just make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, you're right. The goal is low VOC paint, low chemical paint. It's better for the construction workers. It's better for the people moving into that lead building later. Let's keep it simple here and not make this so difficult. Thanks for painting that picture, Tommy. What do you think's your specialty, your gift so far in your career? If you were to talk about yourself, what are you best at?
Specialty or gift? I don't know if I got a great answer for that, but I mean, to me, it's, I think, helping make a lot of these concepts understandable, whether it's from an implementation or whether from it's answering the why should we be doing this at all. Back to, people, we talk to some people sometimes and try and elevate the level of discussion so high it gets beyond people's minds. It goes back to, how do we do this? Why are we doing this? Put it in terms I can understand. And if it makes sense, by all means, let's go and do it. And so I think I've been able to have some pretty good success just by understanding my audience and being able to clearly communicate, what we need to do, how we need to do it, and why we need to do it in ways that they can understand, and thus they can embody, and we can turn that around and see success.
Well, no, I was talking to someone earlier about this, but it's kind of, you have to be a salesman in all the different parts of your life and work, and you sometimes have to convince people and show them the full picture there. So what routines or rituals do you have that help you stay productive or successful? Any pro tips?
I wish I did. I wish I could say I had this great structured, regimented day, but as I mentioned earlier, running this startup world, I've got 20 different hats on. The one thing I have that helps keep me grounded is incorporating my workouts. My 4 to 5 days of working out helps reset me mentally and emotionally, and just, it's a good balance. Try and do it during the week, over lunch, so I can segment my mornings, hit the gym, get back, re-energized, ready to go. Because every day is so crazy. It doesn't matter if you're on the road, if you're at home, you can always try and, if I can find time to incorporate a good workout in, it just helps rejuvenate me and get me back focused and keeps me on task.
Good. No, you got to stay active, and it just helps burn stress and actually give you a little energy, not just put in all those hours. But no, best of luck there with all the Green Badger growth. I'm a fan of the bucket list Tommy, what are one or two things on your bucket list? Maybe personal, maybe business, maybe some adventure.
Well, the one I'm about to start trying to knock off is getting my pilot's license.
Oh, wow.
Literally have that kicking off this month. So hopefully I can accomplish that sooner rather than later. But that process in and of itself is at least a year or 2 year, if not longer, process to fit all that in. So I'm pretty excited to start beginning that journey. And I'd throw in living abroad for an extended period. It's tough, obviously, now with the family and the kids in place. There's probably never a good time to do it, but at some point, whether it's in the near term or the long term, I think it'd be awesome to immerse myself in another culture, another country. I love traveling. I love visiting these places, but being somewhere for a week certainly never gives you the full picture. And I'd love to have that opportunity to be able to break away and really immerse myself in another culture.
Man, I love those. I'm actually fascinated by helicopters. One day I want to get a helicopter license, but I think you want to get that private pilot license sooner than later, man. I commend you on that. And yeah, I've got 3 boys, so you're right. It'd be tough to immerse yourself in another country maybe at this time, but people do it, and who knows what the future will bring. So thanks for sharing. With books, do you read books? Do you listen to books? Any books you'd recommend?
So I don't read nearly as much as I used to, and I've got a stack of books both on my Kindle and the ones I've ordered physical
Sure.
that I need to catch up on. There have been a couple that one I've just reread, and one was just one of the better novels I've read in a long time. And last year I went to Japan for my 40th birthday.
Nice.
And loved the country and culture. And so a buddy of mine sent me the book Shogun by James Clavell, and it was just it's a huge book, but it was a great intriguing read. It was a great story, and again, just to go back in my mind through Japan was pretty awesome. And then I've also just was rereading Pieces Every Step by a monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's really just about mindfulness. We get so caught up in day-to-day pressures and whirlwind of activities and get here and get there and phone calls and meetings, really to be able to take that step back and just be, take that breath in, that breath out, and just be mindful of yourself, of where you are, of what's going on in life. I think it's something that just as we get busy and caught up in our activities, it can be really easy. And you see it every day. I mean, I'm rereading the book because I've been really bad at it, right? I get really worked up over something stupid that's totally inconsequential, like something to do with traffic, right? And it's like, man, in 10 years, I'm not going to know any of this. None of this affects my life. Calm down, be present, be in the present, be mindful of yourself and what's going on. So if you need a book to read about that, Pieces Every Step is a great intro into that.
Thanks. Now we're going to put a link in the show notes. That's a great recommendation. Yeah, I'm focused on some mindset too right now. I'm studying a guy here in Atlanta, Jesse Itzler. He wrote a couple good books. One's Living with a SEAL. He had a Navy SEAL come live with him for 30 days, and just that kind of mindset where every day they were doing their training together. And he married Sarah Blakely, youngest self-made female billionaire, founder of Spanx. So good Atlanta couple, co-owners of the Atlanta Hawks, and just getting into some of his mindset. It's really pretty cool. Well, yeah, let's talk a little more about career, and then I'll go to my final question. But, you've had a great career in green buildings. Now you're growing the startup here, but just, anything you wish you'd have known along the way that maybe you know now?
I think there's one thing that I think, again, I really learned it through my career. It'd be great if somebody told me that on day one. And it's just, know your audience and know how to communicate to them. Everybody has their own agenda. And if you want to be heard, you need to make sure you're talking in a language that those people care about and they understand. We see, and it's the same advice I give people now when they come and I try and share what I've learned. But I see a lot of people who are passionate about sustainability, and that's great. And I am too, and I love it, and I love seeing that. But when their message is just to go out and berate everyone and say, well, you need to do this because it's the right thing to do. Some people respond to that, but there's a lot of people who don't. And so you need to know who you're talking to and say, okay, well, this group, I need to really just focus on the business case of why to do this. I don't have to mention the right thing to do or any of this. You need to do it because it's going to increase your property values and you're going to see this type of return. Or this is an audience who does care that it's the right thing to do. Or this is an audience who cares about their health and the well-being of people who are in the building or whatever they're doing. And so, I went in sort of with those rose-colored glasses of, well, everyone needs to be doing this because it's the right thing to do, and we should just all be doing this. And it was, I quickly learned that if you really want to be able to make progress, you've got to realize who you're talking to. You've got to frame the conversation in terms that they understand and they want to hear. And frankly, that will benefit them, or you'll just never get traction. And so that's something I wish I'd learned a little bit earlier in my life, but it's definitely something I hang on to, and I try and use that as I'm guiding some of these other people through if they kind of ask me for advice.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great piece of advice. You got to know your audience. I'm going to throw in a bonus question here because you spent time in Charleston and you live in Savannah. How do you compare and contrast those two cities? And for those listening, these are two of the best cities to visit, in my opinion, here in the Southeast. So how would you compare and contrast Charleston and Savannah?
So, well, I lived in Charleston when I was in grad school, so I had a lot more free time to enjoy nightlife and be young and fun and single. So it's a bit of a different experience, but I still love going back to Charleston. We were just there a month ago, and you probably always get the grass is always greener type of things going on. Charleston's bigger than Savannah. It's got a bigger metro area. It's got a bigger probably restaurant and social scene just due to the number of additional folks that live there. But Savannah's got a lot of that too. It's growing. We're seeing a culinary revolution going on in Savannah, so it's pretty awesome. It is interesting if you go there because Charleston is more almost Parisian by design. You've got meandering streets that can lead you nowhere, and you can wander around and try and figure out where the hell am I and how did I get here. In Savannah, it's designed by General Oglethorpe from London, and everything is in right angles. There are all streets and parallel streets and perpendicular streets, and it's so easy to get around because you can just go one direction. If you need to go to a different street, you turn right, and there's another street there. So it's laid out. The two cities are laid out much differently, but both are wonderful cities. I love them both, and if it rains a lot, I'd rather be in Savannah because the peninsula just floods incessantly if it's raining, if a thunderstorm comes through. So if you find yourself in the rain, you will most likely get soaked as the driver comes by and just callously soaks you with a giant puddle that's coming by. So look out if you're in Charleston, in the peninsula when it rains. Savannah, we don't have that problem as much.
Gotcha. No, thanks for handling my bonus question there. Two great cities, and I was just curious. But no, Tommy, I just want to say congrats on all your accomplishments, and just best of luck with all your big plans at Green Badger and that cool bucket list, man. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode, and you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.